How you doing tonight? IB Nation Sports Talk. He's Vince. I'm Sean. It's Mailbag night, and I'm not really sure what this is all about from David. How often do you begin IB Nation Sports Talk on time? First of all, when we start is on time.
You darn right.
Right?
That's right. It's like when we show up, the party begins.
Yeah, and it's only 2 after. I know there are others. I'm not going to say any names. I know there are others, though, who don't start by 2 after. Most nights or days or whatever, right?
Not wrong.
So come on, cut me some slack here.
Man, harsh.
Ryan Roberts in the house.
What up, squirrel?
Yeah. So David giving us a hard time. I do want to just go ahead and throw this up there, though. Tommy was, I guess that's not even the one that I wanted to star up. I'm gonna have to scroll all the way back to the beginning because he was the first in tonight. Congratulations, Tommy. I know that's the thing sometimes. So he made it in. A lot of questions queued up and ready to go already. Yeah, see, Matt says show usually starts 6:02-ish, right around there.
See, come on now. Let's go with the program. But hey, it's mailbag.
Usually what happens, like if we're a little delayed getting in, it's one of two things. There are some technical issues that come up from time to time that force, like reboot the computer, some of that kind of stuff. Or two, like one of us gets in right before 6 o'clock and then we start talking kind of in the backstage area before we come on. And
it's usually me.
I'm just saying we start talking and then the conversation kind of overflows a little bit. Delays the start. Last week when we were recording the countdown show, it was, it's the three of us, Vince and Jesse and I, and there was I think you guys started bitching about the Cubs or something like that, and I just went, okay, no, I didn't even say enough. I just hit the start and muted it, drowned it out, and we got it. Man, did you watch the end of the Cubs game last night?
I didn't, but I heard all about it. 6-run lead, blew the 6-run lead.
Well, and then Suzuki dropped the ball. I think they would have won if he would have caught the ball in the outfield. They were leading 6-5. So
that's not okay.
It's a good thing Jesse's not here today because he would be on severe watch.
I mean, it's winning you're in, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have a question about, and I know this isn't a Cubs talk, but I had a question. I had like kind of a session with somebody that I work with, the SRO at our school. And we were talking about, he's a big Cubs fan. I'm a big Cubs fan. It's like, this one isn't quite as painful. Like this swoon here isn't as painful as it has been in the past because I came into this season with zero expectations, like zero. And if the Cubs happen to make the playoffs, that's great. But I also have zero expectations that they're going to win anything in the playoffs. So it's like, I'm not as emotionally invested as I have been in the past because I just didn't have any expectations to begin with. Now, it's that whole thing where they get in and you can taste it and all that and, whatever. But like, I don't know. I don't have the same feeling that I've had in the past when it comes to the Cubs just blowing it. You know what I mean? Because I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs in the first place.
Yeah. That's kind of what I've tried to convince, Jesse, just lower your expectations and kind of look at this realistically. What are their actual chances if they make it? But, he's invested. He's watching basically every night. And he had to have been watching last night. And I didn't hear from him today. That's probably why.
That's probably why.
Because I usually get a lot of either random texts or he'll direct message me a tweet or something that he sees and that kind of stuff. And not today. Let's just get into these questions. Got some good ones queued up. Of course, bring your questions because it is mailbag night. I want to start with David. This is a two-parter. 10-man Oh, that's actually part 2. Hold it. Nope, it is part 1. I had part 1 up there. 10-man, 2-part. Number 1, is Freeman putting in a call to jump off sides when 10 men on the field more of a reactive situation because of what happened? Of course. I mean,
yeah, 100%.
They didn't anticipate it before. And so, he's got to have a plan now. And if nothing else, as we've talked about, he's learned from his mistakes and he's got a plan. How often it's going to come up, I don't know. You hope that it doesn't come up and they don't ever have to go back to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, he knew he was going to be asked about it. So he's got to have a solution when he's asked about it. And that's the solution he came up with. No, that is generally not something that you have like in the arsenal ready to go. It's always reactionary to a situation. And any coach that has that in his arsenal, this happened to him already, or it happened to a team that he follows, or you know what I mean? Like almost everything about football and sports in general is reactionary. You're reacting to something that has happened. So yes. So part 1, yep.
10-man part 2 with the X video from September 4th showing Notre Dame also had 10 men on the field against Tennessee State. Does this indicate a failure of self-scouting? Who normally scouts that? I wouldn't say it's a failure of self-scouting. I would just say for whatever reason, there is an issue with the defense making sure they've got the right personnel on the field. I don't know if it was the same person both times potentially, or I don't know. What do you think about this, Vince?
It's not scouting. That's not the right term. Self-scouting has nothing to do with that. You could call it, you're evaluating your processes, but like scouting is what happens on the field. And yes, I realize the players are on the field, but it's an X's and O's type of thing. This is more of an issue of communication and, chain of command and
potentially
kind of
guys knowing which package they're in on or their
Exactly.
position coach communicating which package is on the field.
Right.
That kind of, and that's,
right.
Where we don't know exactly where the breakdown
Correct.
is because Marcus Freeman basically fell on the sword for everybody and he didn't point the fingers, and commend him for that.
Yep,
because,
which he should do.
Like would Brian Kelly have just said, look, it falls on me, or would he have said, look, we've got a guy who's supposed to be doing this. He didn't do his job, and whatever, that kind of stuff. I don't know. And then Al Golden wasn't asked about it yesterday.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
I don't know.
Well, is it concerning to me that it's happened twice now in 5 games? I mean, it could be anything. How often is a guy running out for extra point? Like, how often is it like, it's not that concerning to me. I'm sorry. Now, the part that's concerning to me is the fact that it happened when it happened against Ohio State. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's more the product of the timing of it than the actual fault. Than the sin itself. Like, it's the timing of the sin as opposed to the sin itself.
If it happened in the third quarter against Ohio State, no one's going to care.
It's an afterthought unless they score a touchdown on it.
You know what I mean? Unless that happened to be
And Tennessee State clearly didn't score a touchdown when Notre Dame had 10 men on the field. So it's something that we're looking at after the fact because of what happened against Ohio State. If it doesn't happen against Ohio State, we're not even talking about it. So yeah, it's just more the timing of it that makes it egregious.
Yeah. And I had not forgotten about it, but because I think we even mentioned it at one point earlier this week, but Tyler Horka tweeted it after the fact, after the Tennessee State game. And he said, 10 men on the field. This can't happen against a better team. And of course it happens against the best team on your schedule. Back-to-back plays in crunch time. Yep. I saw somebody retweeting that earlier today. So I don't know if maybe that's, where it came up from.
Oh yeah,
David
probably.
But like if he saw it floating around out there earlier today, but not good, obviously. Not good. Joe, with more pressure on for the rest of the season, if you were Marcus Freeman, how do you keep the team focused game to game?
Because there's no more pressure on every game, I don't think you have to do anything to keep the team focused. They know dang well that the margin for error is ridiculously slim, right? It's almost non-existent. And so you don't have to go to great lengths to keep your team focused. They're focused because of what the situation is. Now, he still has to coach them up and he still has to get them ready for every game. And you still do the one play, one life and, all of that kind of stuff. You can't change the way you're coaching now, like midstream. That bad coaches do that. You've got to maintain, in my opinion, you have to maintain the same rhetoric, the same message from here on out that you've been preaching the whole way. It was the right message. They just didn't get it done against Ohio State. These are games where you shouldn't have to, in my opinion. You should not have to go to great lengths to keep the team focused at this point because they know they got to win them all here on out.
I mean, look, you got them focused after losing to Marshall last year, and they got them refocused after losing to Stanford, and they turned around and beat Clemson. So the stakes became a heck of a lot lower as soon as you lost to Ohio State and Marshall in back-to-back weeks. And yet somehow they salvaged a 9-3 record out of that thing and ended up going to a bowl. I guess, was it 9-3? Yeah, 9-3. They end up going to a bowl game and winning a bowl game, So I think if you can salvage things and get them focused after that, I think they'll be okay this year because there's still a lot to play for.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh.
It's not the season.
Falling.
Yeah, it's not the season is over. Now, if this were next year, there'd be even more to play for because you'd have a 12-team playoff format. This year it's still 4, so it's harder to get in, obviously, but you can still make it. You can still make it.
Oh, absolutely. You're telling me that all these teams that are ahead of Notre Dame are all going to be undefeated? No, I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen. I have yet to see a truly dominant football team, in 5 weeks of football.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it yet. Now, I certainly haven't seen 4, so yes, there's going to be conference championships. Yes, there's going to be all of these different scenarios that Notre Dame has no control over. That's what they've given up now. They've given up control. So they have to control what they can control and win the rest of their games, period. End of discussion. And if they do that, good things are going to happen around them for Notre Dame.
Smarty Pants Salty is 11-1 Notre Dame's best case record for the season, or is it an equation used to determine the number of players on a goal line defense?
That's pretty funny, actually. That's not really a mailbag question, Salty. It's more of a mailbag statement, but I love it. And you know what else I love? I picked up my peanuts today from Brian's house, and my whole family's pretty fired up to get into it. So I told them they're not allowed to open it until after the show, but I will give you the rundown on how they taste, man. But I'm fired up.
With all this drama this week of the loss to Ohio State, we didn't even get to mention that we met Salty as well as a few other IB listeners, subscribers, viewers out there at the tailgate on Saturday. And Salty met his wife as well. Met Brian's parents for the first time. Me, I know you'd kind of met him before, but and Salty brought the peanuts, and he autographed the cans. So thanks for the peanuts.
It was awesome. I'm keeping the can. I'm going to put the lid like right here on the wall or something. I like the inscription. It's good stuff. The Dean of Discipline. It's good. Well done.
Jeff wants to know, going forward, if Notre Dame's in a tight game and hands the defense a lead late in the game, your confidence level, they make a stop, unlike 3 other games of the Golden Era.
Jeff, this is a great question because you are cutting me like right in my heart. And for me, if we're going on like a scale of 1 to 10 confidence level, it's like a 4 right now. And I hate to say that because I think the defense played well, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame has asked the defense to make a stop on numerous occasions. And he said 3 other games, right? And they didn't do it. And so my confidence level late in the game is low right now. Until they show me that they can do it, my confidence level is really low.
If it's against USC, it is not very high. If it's against most of the other teams remaining on the schedule this season, I would put it maybe at a 7 or an 8, against USC because you got Caleb Williams and legit weapons. I would put it maybe at a 4 or a 3. And what's discouraging to me is both of the coordinators came out and talked last night, and they were asked about different things. Again, Al Golden wasn't asked about 10 men on the field, but he was asked about the defense that he put out there, the quarters in the secondary on 3rd and 19, playing nickel on the goal line, and that kind of thing. And and Jared Parker was asked about the screen pass and some other things like that. The basic response was like, got no problem with the plays. We just need to execute better. That kind of thing. And I don't know. I don't know if that's the right response. We know Marcus Freeman is an introspective guy, but the responses those guys gave seems to, not that they're completely pointing their fingers at the players, but that kind of is what it seems like. It's like, hey, I called the right play. They just need to, players need to execute it better. I don't know if that's the right mentality to have.
It's not the right mentality to have, frankly. That's let's just put it this way.
And it was definitely even more so with Golden than Parker, but there was some of that I felt like with Parker, seeing some of the comments that he had as well.
I've never really liked a lot of the answers that we get out of Al Golden and a lot of different topics. He's just not going to say what you want him to say. I can tell you that. He's not going to say what we want to hear. He's not going to pander to the media or anybody else. And sometimes he's a little too stubborn for my liking with a lot of the stuff. And I would like to see some change, and I'm hoping that change is forced upon him. I'll just leave it at that.
Let's go with what Anthony says. Do you agree Golden has to fix the middle of the field issues? Way too many yards given up this year.
100%. Like, that is when Brian and I talk about the defense and we talk about scheme and we talk about all these different things, whether it's on the air or off the air, the middle of the field comes up an awful lot. And the middle of the field is what lost them the game on Saturday night, period. The manner in which they play the middle of the field is disturbing at times. And if they played that scheme correctly, in my opinion, on that 3rd and 19, they knock it down. But they let a guy run straight up the seam untouched, and they were playing over the top of him, and there was nobody playing underneath. It made no sense to me.
And what he was worried about, again, some of the comments that he said, what he was worried about, and I can pull it up here if you want, and I can read it to you. I know I've got it here someplace. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But the thing that he said was he was more worried about getting a ball dropped over their head in the end zone on that play.
Why? That's dumb.
On 3rd and 19.
So if they score, at least you got some time to do something with it. Like, I don't like that. You have to defend the sticks, in my opinion, on that. You can keep a safety back. That's fine. But you can't let a guy run without anybody covering him, period. Without anybody covering him. High, low, left, right, doesn't matter. You can't allow that to happen. And so that's my bigger issue. I get that he didn't want them to score a touchdown. Okay. But they did the next best thing, and probably something that was even better than scoring a touchdown, is they got a first down and they were allowed to run off more clock. And so that's my biggest issue with the whole thing.
Here's what he said. He said on the previous 4th down, the previous longer 3rd down, they went cover 1 both times. And he said, and they beat us. And what I didn't want to do is throw a jump ball in the back of the end zone. That would have been one that I would have lamented. Could we call other things there? For sure. But we need to execute that call, break on the ball, get the ball on the ground.
If it's cover 1, that's man-to-man. If it's cover 1, then why is this guy uncovered? So I would love to sit in a room.
No. You heard it wrong.
Okay, sorry.
The previous calls were cover 1. That's why they didn't go to cover 1. They were in quarters for that last play. That's what he said. That's why they didn't go cover 1, because they didn't want a jump ball in the back of the end zone.
If you're in court, first
I
of all,
just
quarters
you've
is
got
a
to
terrible
do
call there, but
it's just way too soft. It's 3rd and 19.
Right.
What if you're having that much success with man-to-man, whatever, why are you just going to all of a sudden concede that much ground on 3rd and 19 and and play off that soft and just like you said, let them run downfield? And then the other thing is there's just because it's not just that play that that was obviously deeper down the field on that specific play on 3rd and 19, and we've touched on this week. There are no zone blitz type concepts that help out in those situations where you're catching a quarterback off guard by dropping a guy off the line of scrimmage, either into the middle of the field or in the flat, wherever. You can catch guys off guard doing that. Trust me, I didn't play in college, but I played enough football in high school. Like that was something that we didn't necessarily call it a zone blitz, but we would do that from time to time, is just drop a guy off into those soft areas like that so that you at least have something in the middle. You're not just giving him a free throw downfield.
Right. And that's, my biggest issue is, okay, if you want to go quarters, fine, but you still got to play underneath. You can't just let them run. You got to play underneath, or you got to break on the ball faster. There's a lot of ors that you could have here, but they ran five verts. And nobody was in the middle of the field offensively.
Right.
So the backer
it's
has to come
3rd and 19.
out.
You can get a first down by picking up, and then
you have to ride him. You have to ride that guy and roll with him all the way down because there's nothing underneath to guard.
Right. They were basically focused on keeping him out of the end zone, but they weren't focused on that extra 2 yards that they had in between.
Correct.
Which is just, again, and that's just on that specific play. There are other times, not just on that play. That was really the story of that game, was in the crucial situations when it was time for Ohio State to convert. That's when Notre Dame would go to a lot of the softer type coverage. And it just, I think it was just confounding that they did that so often, and Ohio State was able to capitalize so often.
They didn't even run anything special. It was 5 verts. They just ran straight down the field. It was like playing on a playground, and we did, and Notre Dame just gave it to them. That's the frustrating part. It wasn't even like a good play call. It was 5 verts. Come on.
Salty, I saw your college football playoff question. That's something that we're going to address in rapid fire. So we will have that team or that coming up. Derek says he feels like it's a much bigger loss than the staff realizes.
Oh, the staff realizes plenty. But what do you want? What do we know about the staff? It's what they tell us in the media, right? At press conferences and all of that, right? But what do you want him to say, Derek? Well, season's over. That was the biggest loss of my career. I don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to come back from it.
Yeah, literally, you have another game to play.
You got to turn the page.
There's zero time to dwell on it.
Yeah, they know exactly how big of a loss this was. I promise you.
Yeah, they can't sit there and stew on it and complain and moan about it and talk about how much it sucks because, to the question about getting your team focused, you've got to get the team in the right frame of mind, and you've got to do it quick.
Absolutely.
Practice for the week started Tuesday, and you've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You fly on Friday. They'll have a walkthrough Friday. They'll probably do some kind of walkthrough either at the hotel or wherever Saturday. There's just no time.
Yep. And we would be hammering them, Derek, if they kept talking about this game. Yeah. And they kept, bemoaning how big of a loss it was. And we would be hammering them. We'd be like, hey, you got another game in 5 days. Like, you got to turn the page. You got to get these guys ready, all that stuff. So believe me, I promise you, Derek, behind closed door. And look, I get where you're coming from, man. I do. But behind closed doors, when it's just a coaches meeting and they're discussing things and whatnot, I can promise you, they're talking about how big of an opportunity that was that they let get away from them. Guaranteed.
With the team in front of the team, that's a different story.
Absolutely.
But, you can't afford to waste that kind of energy and risk putting your team in the wrong frame of mind. David wants to know, what's the most devastating loss any of your sports teams have ever had? Are you over it now? I mean, for you, it's almost got to be the Bartman game, isn't it?
That series,
2003?
yeah, that was
Like,
was rough.
maybe there's a Notre Dame loss, like a, USC
USC was
or
big.
whatever.
This one will end up being big. Obviously, the Ohio State, USC, those are right up there. The playoff games aren't that devastating because they got blown out, and I was able to make peace with it by like halftime. So that wasn't really an issue for me. So they linger, like you feel it, you remember the emotion of it. Like I remember the emotion of USC like it was yesterday. I remember the emotion of Saturday, obviously. It wasn't that long ago. I remember the emotion of the Bartman game and realizing there's no way they're going to win game 7 and feeling that. But this is going to sound as corny and cliche as it could possibly be. But at the end of the day, I go home and I give my kids a big hug and I realize it's friggin' sports. Like, it's okay. I'm already sick of talking about Ohio State, David, if I'm being honest with you. And because it's my job, so we're doing it and all that. But like, there's so many bigger things to worry about. I know that sounds cliche and ridiculous because in the moment, man, I'm as passionate and as fired up as Sean, you can attest to this. Like, I couldn't even sit down on that last drive when we were in the press box. Like,
we were all, yeah,
we're like pacing back and forth. Like, I was totally dialed in and like emotionally invested. But 24-hour rule, man. I guess I like a coach, 24-hour rule, and I'm pretty much good to go.
Mine as a fan was Super Bowl 13, Cowboys Steelers, and Roger Staubach threw to this tight end named Jackie Smith. And like, if you've ever seen the old highlights, Jackie did like this jackknife kind of thing. He was down on the ground and in the end zone, dropped a sure touchdown pass, and the Cowboys ended up losing. I remember exactly where I was in my grandpa's basement watching that, down on the floor, and just, oh, are you kidding me? And like, I had no idea who this Jackie Smith was. He had played with the Cardinals for a long time. It was his first year with the Cowboys, and he ended up ultimately, maybe 20 or so years ago, getting elected into the Hall of Fame and all that. But I just cursed the name Jackie Smith for a long time after that. I mean, we've both coached. What about as a coach? Is there one as a coach that has stuck with you the most?
The one that has stuck with me by far the most, and you were there. It was the sectional championship game in 2012.
Jesse played in it.
Yep.
Drew Tranquil and his brother on the other team for Fort Wayne Carroll.
Yep. That was by far the most devastating loss I've ever had.
Was it a 17-point fourth quarter lead or a 14-point?
3 scores. That's what I remember.
I think it was 17-point fourth quarter lead.
And the play calling.
And what happened? Passing instead of running the ball. Because they got Drew Tranquil intercepted it, ran it in for a touchdown.
Yeah, it was a pick 6 by Drew Tranquil, who, by the way, and this is how I know that it was a devastating loss for me. I hated Drew Tranquil. I hated him so much, and it took so much of me to like get over that as he went through his Notre Dame career, because he's such a good guy and he was such a hard-nosed player and he just did everything. He's like, Notre Dame guy, all of that stuff. I hated that kid so much because he just robbed my team of a championship. But in reality, it was the head coach of the team I was coaching for that robbed them of that opportunity. So that's by far, like, not even close. It would have been the first sectional championship in the school's history. And it was my favorite group of kids, Jesse was one of my favorites, and all of those guys that we had coached on the freshman team were now juniors and seniors, and it's like that was our team, man. And
it's
just
still the one thing they can take pride in is it is still the best Adams High School football season in the last 40 years now. At this point, I think you had to go back to '86, like the next best team
which is when Anthony Johnson was there, who went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, but it was so close. It was so close. Yeah. Mine is coaching baseball. We had Penn beat. We were leading Penn in the, high school baseball games are 7 innings. So we're in the 7th inning and we've got the kid at the plate, 2 strikes on him. throw a pitch. We thought we had strike 3. And I still think they didn't ring him up because it was us and it was Penn, and he didn't want to, to end for Penn
on a
like that
called
because
strike
you got
3.
on a called strike 3.
Yeah.
So instead of getting called strike 3 that would have ended the game, the kid walks. 1 or 2 pitches later, he steals second. 1 or 2 pitches later, kid singles him home. So it ties the game. We end up going to extra innings. We play 3 extra innings. And we're basically riding a relief pitcher for dear life, and because it's like who do we have who can throw strikes at that point? And the kid was just pumping it for as long as he could, and then ultimately Penn, of course, breaks through in the 10th inning, and that's where
the Penn depth gets you every time, man.
I know,
like, it sucks.
And like anytime you have a chance to beat Penn,
you're absolutely right.
Yep, and
they're the giant that you want to crush, man. And I remember. I don't know if Jesse had to have been on the team. I think he was probably younger. He was in the playoffs, and Adams played Penn. It was like 17-14 or 14-7.
Yeah.
It was a 1-score game.
Probably the closest Adams has played Penn in forever.
It was raining. It was nasty. It was just a crappy day, and they were almost there. And I just remember that one hurt. That one stung a lot, but not as much as the sectional championship, man.
Yep. I agree. I was there for that one as well.
Yeah, I figured you were. I thought that was early on in the tenure.
I was bundled up in the stands. Gee, baby, how much Braylon James do you guys think we will see this weekend? We haven't even touched on really the fact that Dion Colsey is going to be out for at least a couple of games. We'll find out maybe tomorrow what his status is. Marcus Freeman said Monday he's getting a knee scope. That's why we haven't seen as much of him. And then Jaden Thomas has a hamstring tweak as well. So what do you think? Do we see some Braylon James Saturday?
It's possible, but I doubt it. I still think they are going to try to preserve his red shirt. Now, he gets 4 games, obviously. He hasn't played in one yet. It's possible, but I still think they've got enough numbers to where they won't have to. So I'm going to go with no. I don't think that they're going to play them, but it wouldn't overly surprise me because, like I said, they do enough 12 and 13 personnel where I just – like if they were in 11 personnel like 95% of the time, then there's a good chance that he would see the field.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that they'll err on the side of 12 personnel.
Yeah. Look at the game Mitchell Evans had. And, everyone was talking about Holden Stays a couple of weeks ago, and then Mitchell Evans has the kind of game he has last week against Ohio State with a one-hand grab and everything else. So I don't think they necessarily need to. And it will definitely come down to, can Jaden Thomas go? One, if Thomas plays, there's no reason to play Braylon James. But the other part of that as well is how ready is he? And what is he really going to contribute at this point?
Yeah, has he been up with the varsity? Or has he just been on scout? I don't know the inner workings of what has been going on at practice either. You know what I mean? And so I lean to the side of no.
Yes. I think
and as the chat is saying, why not give the ball to Chris Tyree a little bit more? Yeah. I feel like we've said that sometime in the past.
Yeah. And that's still the one thing when you've got such a dynamic guy like him. And, we've talked about it plenty that Sam Hartman is going to throw to the open guy. And I know there's a video that someone tweeted out where he maybe kind of forced the ball a little bit to Rico Flores when Rico was man-to-man with a defensive back, and it ended up being broken up. And there's Chris Tyree wide open over the middle. Maybe he kind of needs to look for old number 4 a little bit more out there. Yep. I don't know.
Number 4 needs more snaps too. He wasn't out there very often.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there's so much, personnel shifting in and out.
Almost too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. John wants to know, do we have a problem with the media interviewing head coaches during the game? I hate it.
Oh, it's worst. It's the worst. I didn't mean to step on your explanation, but it's what are you getting?
I just wanted to be short and sweet. I hate it.
But seriously, what are you gaining from that interview?
Yeah.
What insight, are you gaining from that interview? Nothing. It's going to be a canned response. It's going to be, oh, we got to work harder. We got to adjust. What are you getting from that? Nothing. I would actually rather hear from a bad color commentator on what he thinks should happen as opposed to the head coach. What do you think? Well, we're going to run more XY banana, spread 15, 30. What do you think you're going to get? It's just his responsibility is to be talking with his team, not talking with the media during the game. Terrible. Terrible.
Completely agree. Basketball's been doing it for a while now. And
bad there too.
It's bad. And I just, like you said, I hate it. There's no reason for it because you're not getting any real answers. The coaches just want to get it over with, basically. But it's part of what comes along with these big media rights deals that they're signing. We'll give you more money. We want more access. Right. That's what it comes down to.
Yep, exactly. And I get why they do it in the women's game. They're trying to, get people more involved and excited and, want to know the coaches more. And so I get that side of it, but you don't need to do it in major college football. You don't.
I concur. David wants to know, if Colorado and Notre Dame play in a bowl game, do you think it would be more watched than the national championship game?
Depends on who's in the national championship game, Sean. I mean, if we're talking like a Big 12 team and USC or something like that, yup, it will be. It will be a bigger bowl game. Now, Notre Dame is playing Colorado in a bowl game. Notre Dame had a terrible season. So that would be disturbing on a lot of levels. That means Notre Dame's like a 7-8 win team. And so that would be bad. And so, but Notre Dame fans will obviously watch, and obviously, so it would be big, but I would be a very devastated Notre Dame person, fan, analyst, etc. if they're playing.
Go
Colorado.
Back to the Rocket days, Notre Dame and Colorado. Once again, I would, just based on the way this whole Dion phenomena has taken off,
You're right.
I would not be surprised at all. If it got a better, and I mean, to be quite honest, there's probably a couple of TV networks that are sitting out there going, man, I hope Colorado, can find its way into a bowl and we can match them up with Notre Dame. I would not be surprised at all.
Well, and the other thing is,
I realize it's early and there's a lot that has to happen, but even, let's say it was like, I don't even know what mid-tier bowl.
Oh my gosh.
Like if it was the Gator Bowl again, just like last year, it'd probably be the most viewed Gator Bowl ever.
Yep. Oh, there's no doubt. And it would have no competition because it wouldn't be going up against, a New Year's Six or, something like it would be the only game in town. So everybody would be watching it. Everybody. But Colorado is going to have to severely overachieve and Notre Dame is going to have to severely underachieve for that to be reality. Now, a couple years from now, if Prime can keep this thing going and keep improving and, maybe he does big things in the Big 12, all of that, then you're going to see that could be potential. So like you were like, just like you were talking, right? Rocket versus Colorado and all that. You're going to harken back to those days in a couple of years if Prime can keep doing his thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because Notre Dame, I'm sorry, they're not coming back to Colorado at this point.
Joe, if the coaching staff truly believes they can compete for a championship, they shouldn't be thinking about preserving red shirts for talented players.
Totally agree, Joe. But here's the problem. Braylon James is not more talented.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about specifically with Braylon James, then that's like, is Braylon James really going to make a difference this weekend? Right. I just,
maybe eventually,
he hasn't played so far. I don't think so.
No, I don't.
And that's what I'm saying. This weekend. No.
Right. He's not, I don't think that he's ready for the amount of time that people think that he's ready for. You know what I mean? And it's not a lack of talent.
But every young talented guy with a star next to his name that people don't see, everyone assumes that he must be ready right now. And that's just, look,
correct.
And I'm not trying to like throw shade on Jalen Sneed, but we've got to see more of Jalen Sneed this year as a sophomore. Everyone was calling for him last year. And Jalen Sneed has made some mistakes in front of everyone's eyes now this year on Saturday. And if he's making those kind of mistakes now, you can imagine what it had to have looked like in practice last year. There's a
Correct.
reason he wasn't out there more last year.
And we've also, just on the flip side, we've also seen the really athletic version of Jalen Snead, which is why everybody's so excited about him, right? But he's just not consistent enough of a player that you can have him out there as much as people want him out there.
Yep. It's a good point because he's made some plays as well. It was a nice pass breakup he had there in the end zone. He's done some nice things, but there are times when he's still not quite where he needs to be. Some different things.
Right.
Joe wants to know what our next bucket list item is. He says his is seeing a game in South Bend. First was when he went to the game in Dublin.
Ooh,
nice. Congratulations,
that would be huge, Joe. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Not hilarious. I don't think that's the right word, but it's pretty funny that you went
saw
and saw
a game
Notre
there
Dame
before.
You saw Notre Dame in Dublin, but not in South Bend. Like, that's amazing to me. Honestly, my realistic bucket list item right now is to watch Notre Dame play at Lambeau. Like, I'm actually really looking forward to that one. Was it next year? Maybe the year after? Whenever it is.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to that one. So that's the most realistic one. But then the next bucket list item, and again, this is going to sound cliche, I want to see Notre Dame playing in a national championship. Like, that's what I want. That's the bucket item, man. I want to be at the national championship game that Notre Dame is participating in.
My next bucket list is I want to, I like Jesse and I have been talking about this for a couple of years. Want to see a game at Fenway Park. Go do that. Probably sit on top of the Green Monster doing that.
I can't believe you've never done that.
I haven't.
That surprises me.
I know. And he was like, I think it was like a month before training camp started. He was like, hey, maybe we can go see a game. I'm like, this is one I think we need to plan for a little bit in advance. I want to get to Cooperstown at some point. Like to do that.
Sure.
Other than that, I've
that's
been
a
thinking
trek
about it
because there's nothing nearby. It's like in the middle of nowhere, from what I understand.
At some point, I'd like to, just have that RV that I've talked about and just bebop around and, like maybe, hit like 5 or 6 ballparks at one point, go see some, wherever college football games, but that's off in the future. I would definitely like to do that. Like have the RV and just bebop around and go check out some baseball and football games. Different spots around the country.
We still need to do the RV for a football game. Like that still needs to happen.
See, I'm thinking Lambeau.
Yes.
Like if we could swing that.
That's what I was thinking.
Because you could turn the RV into
a studio
as well. Now the cell, the wireless reception might be an issue.
That's where we got to plan ahead, Sean Stiers. We got to plan ahead, get the mobile hotspot that's really, really good. That whole thing. Make it happen.
You know how that data goes on game day? Like nobody could text out there in the parking lot. I actually had a text bounce back to me today.
Did you
that
really?
I was trying to send to you and your father-in-law. Yeah, it was like message failed to send, and I'm like, what is this? I haven't even tried to send anything. And it was from Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
So I don't know. No other Notre Dame questions. Have we hit all the Notre Dame stuff pretty good, I guess, this week?
I think so.
We've got some other questions that I'll kind of work into rapid fire, but it doesn't look like we've got a lot of other Notre Dame questions.
No, everybody's kind of putting up their bucket list and having some fun with that, and I think that's awesome. So yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. Matt said, man, his Red Sox are awesome this year. Oof. Goodness.
I mean, at least the Cubs have the opportunity to get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to blow it, but
It's Dave Dombrowski did everything I think but sell his soul to win a championship kind of at the end of his tenure as general manager, and not to let Chaim Bloom off the hook, but there wasn't a lot there, but he also didn't make a lot of good moves to try to dig him out of the hole that Dombrowski kind of started him in a few years back. So I don't know. Be curious. And that's first time in 30 years, no playoff with Sox, Yanks, or Cards.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I know.
Come on back, Rizzo. Come on back. Come to a team that can make the playoffs.
Well, you know what though? I know Rizzo has had the concussion but like all that talk just 3 years ago about, are you going to keep Baez? Are you going to keep Rizzo? Schwarber? Are you going to keep Bryant? Schwarber was the one that really nobody seemed to care about. And of the four, he's the only guy who's producing like a major leaguer this year.
His average is terrible, but he's putting the ball out of the ballpark.
That's baseball, right?
Yeah. That's baseball now for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt about that.
Yep. Chris Bryant, Javi Baez especially,
they've just disappeared. Just disappeared. They were rock stars, Sean. Rock stars when they were in Chicago, and they have one went to Detroit, obviously, and the other one went to Colorado. Bye. Welcome to the abyss.
El Conquistador. Excellent point. October is the best sports month, and we are just days away from the start of October.
There is nothing better than going to a Notre Dame game, and the Cubs are on one of the TVs up there playing in the postseason. Just saying.
Concur. Excuse me. Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Cheers, Sean Stiers. I'm ready to go.
All right. Fill in the blank. DJ Brown spoke at the media yesterday. Didn't have to be there, but he was. And that's blank.
Incredibly mature, especially based on what he said. I give that kid a lot of credit because he did not have to. He could have just went to class or hid in his room or, whatever, because he is taking a lot of heat. And for his play on the field, deservedly so, right? But he's still a human being. And take it from someone who knows what it's like to get hammered online. He's taking it like a champ, man. And I give him a lot of credit for going in front of the media. I give him a lot of credit. Now, Notre Dame media, outside of maybe one person, is very positive. They're not going to try to hammer him in a press conference, right? But you still got to do it. You still got to answer those questions. You still got to man up and talk about it. I give him a ton of credit.
The stuff came up about the intercept, not holding on to the ball and that kind of stuff. And it's you got to give big kudos,
man,
to this kid because he is not a star at Notre Dame, but he was, a pivotal player in the game Saturday. And the ball obviously didn't bounce his way a couple of different times. And he could have easily just said, no, I don't want to do it. But he came out there. And when he was asked why he came out there and wanted to talk about it, here's what he said, quote, "Great players make mistakes. Great players miss shots. Michael Jordan has missed the game-winning shot. For me, if I don't learn from this game, the Ohio State game, then I've failed. I feel like I just want everybody to know I've moved on. I'm looking forward to Duke. I acknowledge where I could have been better, and I know when I'm in that position, whatever game it is, I'm going to be grateful for what happened against Ohio State. I feel like I've prepared for that moment. For me, it's just wiping the dirt off and just moving on, honestly," end quote, from DJ Brown. And what more do you want from a player than a response like that? When, again, he could have just stayed in his dorm room or his apartment, I guess, probably now at this point in his career.
Well, but he's an adult. Yeah.
Yeah. He could have just finished practice, gone home, and not dealt with it. And I think you've got to give major props for him showing up and for that response that he gave.
Well, that's leadership, right? That's the definition of a leader. No matter what he does on the field, this is the definition of a leader. And this is, I've said this, I think 3 times in this show. I know it sounds corny. I'm going to show my son this right here because this is what you want your players to be like. And this is a microcosm, in my opinion, of what Marcus Freeman is building. It is. And to be able to trot him out, or, I'm sure he went to Marcus Freeman and said, I want to talk, I want to be out there, or whoever he went and said that to. That's man, I give a lot of credit because
big time.
At the end of the day, it's not about football. It's not about sports. It's about growing adults, right? And this is an adult move right here because I know plenty of adults that would not have owned up like this.
Yep. Good on him. Big time.
Yep.
Okay, so I think probably most of our fans have probably seen this. We haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. It came up. I saw it right before the show yesterday, and Jesse kind of mentioned it. I hadn't had a chance to kind of see all
this is great.
The details of this. So here it is.
I read the article, Sean, and I'm just shocked that article made it. Anyway, gonna continue.
Yeah. I was gonna say you gotta let me get the topic out there.
You're right.
Before you go down that road. So this guy from the Michigan State Rivals site, Spartans Illustrated, he says Marcus Freeman is Michigan State's best option to replace Mel Tucker. Among the things this guy, Rico Beard, says, Freeman is making in the $2.5 to $3 million a year range at Notre Dame. Michigan State could throw like $6 million a year at him, more than double his salary. That would be an inducement. He mentions that they're building a $30 million football facility that could entice Freeman. He mentioned Freeman's ability as a recruiter as one of his assets. I don't know. Maybe if you think I'm leaving anything out here, you can add to it. But do you see any way Marcus Freeman would leave Notre Dame for Michigan State?
Zero chance. I don't care if they offered him, double the money and gave him a stake in how much money that they make, like a percentage of the profits or what. Like there's no way that he leaves Notre Dame for Michigan State. This isn't 1966. This is 2023. He took over a Notre Dame team that was on the cusp of greatness. Okay, they were on the cusp. They couldn't ever get over the hump, right? We've talked about that a million times. They couldn't get over the hump. His recruiting at Notre Dame has been stellar, right? Now, could he do a good job of recruiting at Michigan State? Yeah, of course he could.
I think he would recruit. To an Eskimo. I think he would recruit above Michigan State's status.
100%, but they'll never be a top 3 or top 5 recruiting class to Michigan State consistently. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And to compete in the Big Ten is going to be really, really hard on a regular basis. I mean, you have an in-state school that you've got to compete against that's kicking your tush in recruiting right now. The bottom line is, yes, Michigan State has some history, in football. Notre Dame's history is unmatched. There's no chance Marcus Freeman leaves Notre Dame for Michigan State. Zero.
Right. The only real consideration is, like, would Marcus Freeman and his agent play that? Oh, we've got an offer for Michigan State. Try to get a raise. That kind of thing.
That's fine.
Yeah,
no problem with that.
I just feel like this guy is, like Dan Lanning was like, we're playing for wins. They're playing for clicks. This guy is definitely playing for clicks with this because it's not based in reality. It's just, you're not going to leave Notre Dame for do we consider Michigan State an upper tier Big Ten program even, or do we consider them mid tier? Because they're definitely not.
They're hovering
Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. You're starting off below them.
Yeah.
And they're basically, with Iowa and Wisconsin probably in that next tier.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
Like upper mid tier kind of thing.
Upper mid. If you made like 4 groups, you had like upper and then upper mid, lower mid, and then low. I think they would fall in the upper mid.
Michigan State, and because of that, and you're obviously adding all these other schools, you're adding Oregon, Washington, USC coming in. So, I mean, you're going to be mid pretty soon. And it's just like Michigan State, I'm sorry, is the kind of place that because of the fact that you're always going to be second fiddle to the guys who are just a little bit south of you and to Ohio State and to Penn State, you're hoping for a few good years and probably move on and bounce to the next place. As I've already seen somebody mention Nick Saban couldn't win at Michigan State. And I mean, and that's what you're looking for because you're just not going, like D'Antonio stayed there for a long time. He probably ultimately stayed longer. than he should have. Like he probably could have gone someplace and been more comfortable, at a higher profile program. But I think that given today's state of college football, the best case you're hoping for at Michigan State is to have a handful of good years and then turn that into a springboard
Correct.
for one of the actual high profile programs,
which is Notre Dame, where he's already at.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
The only benefit to Marcus Freeman to going to Michigan State would be the paycheck that the guy
Correct.
mentioned off the top, assuming, that's what he could get, that he could get a pay rate. And what's crazy to me is like, you've got Michigan State fans who are actually debating this, like, oh, Marcus Freeman's not good enough for Michigan State. You've got some of them saying, and then on the other hand, it's like, the delusional Michigan State fans who think that this is a great natural fit and he would be better off up there. It's just funny looking at the faction.
Oh yeah.
The factions fighting over whether or not Marcus Freeman is suitable when he's more than suitable. And no, it would never happen.
There's people that want Marcus Freeman fired, from that are Notre Dame fans. And so they, you have to find the happy medium of where the reality actually lies. The reality is he's not leaving Notre Dame for Michigan State. The other reality is, maybe his salary is $2.5 to $3 million, but he also has a deal with Under Armour. He also has a deal with this. He also has a deal with that. He's making plenty of money. And a lot of those other sponsorships aren't going to be around if he's at Michigan State. They're around because he's at Notre Dame. So let's be real honest here. Maybe he could cash in for a little bit more, but he's not an idiot. He's not taking the short-term pay increase for the long-term headache that is Michigan State right now. That campus is a disaster with everything that's gone on there over the past 5 or 6 years. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with the culture of athletics at Michigan State right now. From women's gymnastics to the football coaches getting fired, all of that stuff.
Every time you turn around, it's just...
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that.
Toxic.
Yes.
And Chris Kleeman at Kansas State apparently pulled his name out. He made the announcement that he's not interested in Michigan State. If Chris Kleeman ain't going, Marcus Freeman's not going anywhere. Sorry.
Oh, I think it's hilarious, though. Hey, you know what? Keep thinking big, Michigan State. Just keep thinking big, baby. I love it.
Sparty on. Yep. So here's a couple questions Irish defensive coordinator Al Golden got at his media session yesterday. Question: with Thomas Harper playing so well and Jack Kaiser playing so well, how do you get them both on the field? Answer from Al Golden: we talked about that. We have to mix Harp in a little bit more at safety, and Jack's numbers are going to go up. Jack's played well the last 2 games, and he probably got shortchanged. I don't know the numbers from the other day. Question: 10 snaps. Not really a question, but kind of a response. 10 snaps is what he got. Answer: so not enough. So we need to get his numbers up. Question: it's a challenge, right? Because he's a rover. You want to play nickel. Answer: yeah. I mean, it's always a challenge, but yes, we need to rotate more as a defense. So Vince, Kaiser, despite this low snap total, is still Notre Dame's leading tackler right now, despite the lack of snaps. So what do you make of all this?
There's a lot to dissect, a lot to unpack, as they say at church on Sundays.
They say that at church. There's a lot to unpack.
Oh yeah, they'll read a bunch of some of the Bible, and there's a lot to unpack here. Let's settle in. Does Jack Kaiser need to be on the field more? Yeah, he does. And as the defensive coordinator, you need to figure out a way to make that happen, because he is your leading tackler. He obviously is doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I also think that Thomas Harper is playing well, despite some of the nonsense that people gave him after the Ohio State game. I mean, he did the best he could against what was being thrown at him. I kind of like the idea of putting him at safety a little bit more, especially based on the way the safeties have played this year overall, right? So I have no problem with 13 getting some safety snaps if that allows Jack Kaiser to come in and play a little bit more as well. So look, it's his job to figure out how to get the right personnel on the field. Hint, hint. But it's going to be interesting because they do kind of play the same quote unquote position because of the nickel and the base and all of that. It's like one or the other. So how does he balance that? Well, that's his job. He needs to figure out how to make that happen because they both need to be on the field.
And we saw that even though Jack Kaiser ended up leading the team in tackles against Central Michigan when Bertrand was out, that middle linebacker is not where he needs to be. I thought maybe we'd see him more in a rotation at the other linebacker spot with Maris Leofau, but that's not what we've seen. We've seen mostly Maris, and we know that Maris did not have, as much as he was on the field, he didn't have a tackle against Ohio State the other day. And the biggest conundrum appears to be what you talked about, and what the question was, because he's a rover and because they play so much nickel against these teams with the extra receiver out there, the only real way, even if you move Thomas Harper back to safety, that's not necessarily going to guarantee that Kaiser's going to get on the field as the rover, because you don't want him, over there trying to cover a receiver. So I don't know. Unless something gives, and number 8's going to come off the field more.
Right. In which, Saturday would not have been a bad decision based on the way things were going, right? I mean, but that's your job as a coach, is to realize when guys aren't playing well and make an adjustment, make a change, right? I mean, there was a kid that wasn't playing well in the soccer game last night. 2 minutes into the second half, that kid gets subbed out because he's not playing well. Like, that's what you do. That's what you do as a coach. You don't just, we got to keep riding him. He's going to pan out event. Like, no, you make the change. And it's so much easier in a football game, in a soccer game, because you can do these rolling changes and you can get guys in and out, as opposed to other sports like baseball. Because, like, once you take them out, like, you can't put them back in. So you've got to make those adjustments. You've got to make those personnel changes.
And as Ryan says, problem is you have to figure out your nickel.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Agreed.
So Bill said today he read Marist had 3 tackles. The person keeping the score sheet made mistakes. I don't know that is correct. I haven't seen that. And there's not necessarily a score sheet. There's a whole booth full of people.
Correct.
Doing stats.
It's not like a dad they pulled out of the stands,
There's
like
basically, because I did this a few years ago, there's one person with binoculars who is watching the field, and on the given play, they call out the number of the person who made the tackle, and they, and if there's an assist, they call that number out as well. And that's, then there's a person sitting there with an input on the computer, and they input those numbers into the computer. Now, the coaching staff can also go back, and many times they will go back and do it themselves to make sure that that the numbers are being credited where they're supposed to be. I don't know. I'd have to go back.
Maybe that happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look and see if maybe Marist was credited with some stats that have been put up there since then. I don't know. Maybe
I looked at the StatCast, from Saturday. I still have it up on my computer, and it's definitely not on there. There's definitely nothing there for him. So,
give me a second here, and let me see if I'll go to not the StatCast, because I don't think it would have been changed in.
You don't think
there,
it would have been updated there? All right, which is
but
definitely
it would
true.
be changed on the. Where is it? The actual online box score.
Sure.
It is kept, and I'm looking for that right now. And let's see. I'm not seeing the right link that I needed there. So let me go back to this other one here real quick. I know this is exciting and enthralling for people to hear as I search for this. Okay, there's the defensive stats.
Any number 8?
There is nothing for Maris Leofau.
Yep.
For tackles.
There you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I don't know where that information came from that they might have changed it. Corned beef hash. Something I love, by the way. Love a good corned beef hash. Do you guys really believe Golden is going to change?
Hmm.
What is Golden's scheme? I'm having a hard time figuring out what their identity is. Few sacks, quarterback pressures, few turnovers created.
Well, they had a bunch of quarterback pressures in the last game. They just didn't get home. I mean, I think they had 27 quarterback hurries or pressures or whatever that Pro Football Focus does. It was a high number. I know that. But they're not getting home. They're not getting the sacks. And Brian will tell you, as long as you're getting the pressures, it doesn't necessarily matter. You get the sacks. We'll have to agree to disagree, but at the same time, fine. We have some common ground in there someplace, as long as the quarterback pressure is forcing some,
See,
him
that's
to actually
interesting
throw
that
off.
Pro Football Focus would have that high a number because according to the official stat sheet, they had 2 hurries on Saturday.
Yeah, they had a bunch of pressure numbers, and Ohio State had like 15, something like that.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't have access to that. That's the number that Brian read on Monday night during our show. So I'm just gonna go with what he had to say. But look, he wants to pressure. He wants to bring pressures from different areas. He wants to bring corners. He wants to bring safeties. He wants to bring, do twists and stunts. I just don't think it's attacking enough. I think when they're doing their twists and their stunts, they're just staying at the line of scrimmage and not attacking. I want to see them attack. What is his scheme? I'm sure that he's got some sort of a name for it. That's fine. It just needs to be more sound. That's my issue. Like, I'm fine with bringing pressures. It just needs to be more sound.
As to whether or not he's going to change, I would say no. The only way he's going to change is if he is told, I think, by the head coach, this is what I want in this situation, I think that's the only way that's going to happen. And Marcus Freeman seems to have complete trust and has given, autonomy to Al Golden to run his defense, because the way he's calling it right now, maybe have we seen a big change in approach? Probably. Did we see fewer blitzes against Ohio State? Yeah, because I think that they were concerned about giving up some big plays and stuff like that. So they didn't blitz quite as much. But they still obviously ended up giving some big crucial plays because of how soft they played with that zone that we talked about earlier. But I don't think we're going to see any drastic changes from the way Al Golden calls defense. I don't see that. And Matt said Driscoll said that Marist had some tackles he was involved in but were not counted. That may or may not be true, but that's also subjective in terms of whether or not the people I was just talking about in that booth doing the stats want to credit an assist or not. Like, who do they want to credit assist to? Do they really think that he was a part of the tackle? Did he just get there and kind of do a Jalen Smith when he was with the Cowboys and jump on the pile at the end and those kind of things?
Right.
So
being involved, being in the area, forcing a guy to cut inside or whatever, and again, it's not the stat line is not the be all end all. I mean, you got to watch the film to see if a guy was effective.
Right.
A lot of times where he was not effective. And even if he ended up with 3 assists in that game, that's not enough from that position. That's what I'll say. That's not enough.
No, and it's not enough because of the high snap count that he is playing out there. Now, we've talked about it before. He's played better this year. You do have to give him that. But he had his worst game, I think, of the season. Saturday against Ohio State against the best team that he's played. So American Conference Commissioner Mike Oresco says he supports a 5+7 college football playoff model if the Pac-12 ceases to exist. And remember, there's only 2 teams, but technically the Pac-12 is still alive right now, and they're trying to find a way to stay alive. So it's a change from the originally approved 6+6. In other words, currently it's the 6 best conference champions as the automatic qualifiers, and then 6 at-large spots, the next 6 highest ranked teams. 5+7 would be just the 5 best conference champs and then 7 at-large bids. So do you buy or sell the potential change to the 5+7?
Well, it's a huge buy if the Pac-12 no longer exists, right? I mean, That's makes perfect sense. You subtract 1 because there's only 4 power conferences. It'd be the power 4 instead of the power 5, right? And so it would be 4 plus the best conference champion from the group of 5 or however many there's going to be, right? And then you have 7 at large. That's 100% exactly how you would do it. The fact that one guy's getting credit for this idea is hilarious. Like, this is called the common sense change to the 12-team playoff. And the hilarious part is that it's been tabled. Like, this suggestion has been tabled for now, quote unquote, because they're not ready to rule on it. I'm sure that they're hoping that the Pac-12 survives and they're not going to have to change the ruling, but it's ridiculous. Like,
Well,
change it. Come on.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the question from Salty. Does switching to the 5+7 help or hurt the group of 5s? And it hurts the group of 5s because as of right now, if the Pac-12 goes away and there are 6 automatic bids, then it's going to go to one of the group of 5s. And I heard like some kind of historical what it would have looked like the last few years. That second group of 5 is going to be teetering on even being ranked in the top 25. It's going to be a much worse group of 5 type team that gets in, which is obviously why if you're a power 5, and especially when you're stacking all these power 5s with all these different programs, you don't want that low tier group of 5 getting in. But the other problem is, just like the whole back and forth about whether or not they were going to expand, remember, over the last 2 years before they finally approved it, is you still got 2 years left on the current contract. So what that means is it's got to be a unanimous vote to get anything to pass. So the group of 5s are going to hold out and say, no, we don't want it. We want to keep it as it is. So, and then
I get it. I get it. Yeah. I understand.
But you're absolutely, like, if you want the best teams in, you want this 5+7. You don't want the 6+6.
I mean, look, here's the deal.
Because even the Pac-12, even if they survive, they're basically going to be an overblown group of 5.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And let's say they did it. You got the projection of the 5, right, or whatever. Let's say Notre Dame's the 5th seed or the 6th seed, for example, and there's no Pac-12, right? That means that Notre Dame would be playing a conference champion from a group of 5 conference that's not even ranked in the first round of the playoffs. Woo! Like, who gets excited for that? That's my problem with the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, that would be my issue with it. I totally understand where the group of 5 teams are coming from. They're looking for that payday, baby. They're looking for that payout. They're looking for the recognition. I would 100% be doing exactly what they're doing and holding out and not voting on it. 100%. But in the big picture, as a fan of college football in general, that first game is going to be a dud. That's not something I want to watch.
I concur. Salty says Utah's head coach Kyle Whittingham said the Utes are going to the Big Ten. Is Utah football a good fit in the Big Ten? And are they going to the Big Ten in the next round? They're actually going to the Big 12. So
I was going to say,
I think that Kyle is a little confused on what his future address is going to be.
Are they officially going to the Big 12? Like, I can't even keep it straight anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's why there's 2 teams left in the Pac-12 because they're one of the teams going to the Big 12.
So are they a good fit in the Big Ten? They are a better fit in the Big Ten than UCLA and USC because of the way they play the game, if I'm being honest.
True.
Because they play more kind of run the ball, smash mouth, physicality, all those things that Ohio State lacks, according to Lou Holtz. That's what Utah has in spades. And so they're going to be the odd duck in the Big 12. They actually fit philosophically the way they play the game better in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Mr. 2.0 wants to know any word on how the King of Dublin reacted to Notre Dame's loss.
I heard that he put in a request to get his shillelagh back.
That'd be something. Another one from Salty. The Utah Jazz announced a direct-to-consumer streaming option with very fan-friendly pricing. Would you pay a season rate to stream Notre Dame on mobile devices?
I mean,
Like you're
salty.
asking probably us the wrong people because we're
Right.
at all the Notre Dame
And
stuff.
you're also asking the wrong person because I'm about as cheap as they get. And so
That's fair. Vince would find a way to scam it. Like
I would
however he
find a
could.
way. Yes, I would find a way to make it happen so I wouldn't have to pay for it. But if I am the general fan of Notre Dame and I was guaranteed to get all 12 games on this streaming service for a quote unquote fan friendly price, whatever that may be, I would probably pay it, to be honest with you. If that was the only way for me to watch Notre Dame football, I would pay it. I would.
I would too. And I think that I won't be surprised. I don't know. The NBC contract is going to play a big part in all of this going forward. I'll be really curious to see, because, well, and again, you've got a guy with a TV background who's taken over as athletic director, so you're going to have kind of a different philosophy approach going forward.
Notre Dame fans have been very spoiled having Notre Dame on network TV, for 30 whatever years it's been. They've been very spoiled. That is not the case with any other, because and I mean, ESPN really, you got to pay for.
When you think about it, I guess, I mean, you can get, like, if you've got Peacock and you're paying the premium Peacock subscription, can you get it on your mobile device? Do you know?
I believe so. Yeah, there's a Peacock app. There's a Peacock app, so yeah, you can.
I mean, I know there's a Peacock app. What I'm saying is it blacked out because like they want you to watch it over the like those kind of things?
That's a good. Now
Timmy says yes. Timmy says you can. So it's
in the past. Yeah, in the past, I was watching. I would watch the Notre Dame broadcast live while watching at the game, right? And I would do it through the Peacock app.
Okay.
So yeah, the answer is yes, but I don't have it anymore.
Matt wants to know if you still have a flip phone.
I don't, but here, let me get it out of my pocket. I got this bad boy right here. Nope, there's my daughter. And it's a 10 though. Like it's an iPhone 10. So apparently they just came out with the 15. So I think I'm pretty far behind, but like still texts and does all the important things that I need it to do. So I'm good.
El Conquistador says Dylan goes without Chipotle once a month.
I feel like El Conquistador knows my son. It's his favorite place to go.
Vince is his Taco Bell. Dylan's a little bit more elevated in his taste.
He is, which is why he doesn't get to go there very often. So yeah.
It's like, go with the old man and get the box.
That's right, man. $5 box.
That's right. Salty wants to know, is the staggered 2-game Monday Night Football format boom or bust? I don't.
You're more the NFL guy than I am. What do you think?
I haven't been as thrilled with it as I thought. Maybe it's just the games the last couple of weeks, but it's been kind of to me. I've definitely flipped back and forth, but I
want them back to back.
Yeah. Salty also wants to know, is buying a car in America a lost art? Do you hate the idea? Do you dread the trip to the car dealership? Do you prefer the new methods? I have not tried any of the new methods.
What are the new methods? Like they deliver it to you, like you buy it online and they deliver it to you?
Some of that kind of stuff.
I need to see it.
I hate the car dealership, man, because it's like,
I do too.
Even if you walk in the door and make a decision within the first 30 minutes, you're there for like 5 hours.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Going through the rest of the process. It's just insane.
Yep. And it's terrible.
And the game you have to play to try to get, like the whole trying to negotiate a price. And it's like, well, I don't know. I can't come down that $100. Are you kidding me?
I'm trying to buy a used car right now since I have an additional driver in the house. And that process is ridiculous too. I mean, it's just the used car market is ridiculous right now, cost-wise. And trying to find just a good used car with not a lot of miles on it, and just has the basic things that you want in a car. It is ridiculous. You got to drop like 5 figures just to get 5 figures just to get a decent car. It's ridiculous.
We the last couple cars that we bought from the same dealership. And the second time we went in, we knew, like, we had researched online and we knew what car we wanted, yada yada. And
Probably still took you hours.
and they were like, "Oh, you were with old Joe or whoever last time. We're going to give you him." And we were like, "We don't want him. He was not a joy to work with."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yes, doing the car purchase is probably it's very low on my.
And
I've literally before, like when my wife has brought it up, I'm like, you go figure out what you want. I'll show up when it's time to sign the papers.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. And somebody's talking about the insurance for teens. It is ridiculous. It was $100 a month for my one kid.
Yeah,
it's so bad.
Yes, El Conquistador, yada yada. I did buy John Voight's LeBaron, and I got the pencil that came with it. So,
yep, there you go.
All right, well, that's going to do
it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here. Good questions tonight, and we will wrap up our week tomorrow. I guess technically we wrap up the week with Countdown to Kickoff on Friday and Saturday, but the live stuff we wrap up tomorrow. We're almost through this painful week.
We just need another game. It's the one thing I hate about football is you got to wait a week.
The waiting.
When I was coaching, playing, analyst work, whatever, waiting a week to get that taste out of your mouth after a bad loss is the worst. That's the one thing I loved about baseball. You had a game like 2 days later or even the next day. You know what I mean? It was fantastic.
Tyler, the misguided passion Bengi, said that Ryan asked me to tell a Jesse childhood.
I believe the question was an embarrassing Jesse childhood story. You should do it when Jesse's on.
I was going to say.
Not behind his back.
I'll have to think.
Yeah. You have to go through the archives here.
I know. Yes, Ryan, I know. I treated you like Tommy Guns. I completely ignored you. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. We will talk to you tomorrow. We will be here. Hit the like button as you leave tonight. And, of course, subscribe, rate, and review. We'll talk to you next time on IB Nation Sports Talk.